Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesigningacademy.com. In this lesson, I'm going to show you guys how to fix a continuity issue in a RIM file that was submitted by one of my subscribers. Okay, so this is the real file in question, and this is the particular area that the viewer had a question about. So, well, let's check those. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and do a check continuity. And now there were several areas of problems, so I'm just going to turn these off for now. Let's go ahead and check the continuity issue. So it looks like there is a bit of a mixture here and there. So there's position failure here, position failure there, tangency issue, and of course, curvature issue as well. Now, before I start though, there are a couple of reasons why it's a little bit difficult to execute a good continuity, especially with a build like this. And the first thing is you gotta check the continuity or the construction settings for the file. So if you look at the construction options, you'll be able to find the tolerances. And if you look at the continuity, maximum gap is 0.001. Now, I think this is a little bit too tight. Now, if you are doing Class A surfacing, maybe some vendors might require a tight setting like this, but I personally think that it's a little bit tight. I would prefer to actually work with 0.01 or even 0.005 instead of 0.001. Same thing with the G1 tangent. I know some companies may require 0.05, but I do prefer to work with 0.1. Now curvature continuity at 0.1 is good, but I do think that alias continuity checker for curvature is a little bit weird. But these two are critical numbers, and these are very tight settings. And another thing that I didn't notice was the curve fit checkpoints is 50. So if I were to do a surface continuity check over here, and I'm just going to turn on the show command auto scale on, and if I click on this one, you'll see that the continuity checker is it's very dense. If you look at the combs, so you'll see that it's very dense over here. Now it just means that it's checking a lot of points, but I would actually prefer to not do that and maybe just turn down to 10. If I do the same thing over here, you'll see that there's less combs. I think this is plenty. I don't think you need 50. It actually can, depending on how many checkers you have on, it can actually slow down the performance of the computer quite a lot. So I will check those. But yeah. Now, since this person did request these settings, so I'm going to use those. But let's go ahead and check other reasons why this is a bit difficult. Now, one of the reasons for this is that the form factor that this creator is using is 0.5, especially for these fillets. Now, form factor of 0.5 is great for larger areas. For small fillets like these, I would actually prefer to just use 1, because if you have a CV that's bunched up towards the center, it does make these kind of transitions a little bit more difficult. Now, of course, they are doable. It just poses a bit of a challenge. Now, the last reason and the most critical reason is, of course, the larger fillet going over the small one. So if you look at this one over here, you'll see that there are large fillets, a transition from a large fillet to a smaller one, but it is sitting on top of a small fillet like this. That is going to give you a very, very difficult problem. When you're doing a fillet over fillet transition like this, especially a wide fillet, you should always do the large one first. But in this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this to work, since this is the execution that was done. All right. Now, I did put a theoretical file here just to show you guys. And also, I would say the last reason, another reason that this becomes a little bit difficult, or this is the theoretical itself. So if you look at the theoretical over here, because of how it's executed, you'll see that there is a little bit of snaking going on. Now, this is more of an aesthetics thing, but this is also something that one needs to consider when building out, any objects, in fact. So, that said, let's go ahead and try to fix the continuity issue over here. So I'm just going to turn this off, and I did isolate a file over here. So The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see where it is failing. So if you look at this one, it's failing here, it's position failure here, and tangents failure here. And of course, this is probably the biggest problem area. So I'm just going to try to maintain the patchwork as closely as possible and still get the continuity desired. Now, that said, however, there are several things that I want to do. If you want to make a fillet to be work a little bit easier, I would say the first thing that you need to do is trim convert edges like these. So that is the first step I'm going to take. So I'm just going to trim convert this one and the original file that I do want to keep that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this surface over here. I'm just going to hide it. And let's just call the layer hide so that I know it's there. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to also trim convert this one as well. So if you check the continue over here, it's a failing position. Now this is a relatively simple surface. So I'm going to guess that it's probably the COS that was not as clean, or it could be just the complexity. However, I would prefer to keep it nice and clean. So let's go ahead and trim convert that as well. Okay, and the second thing I'm going to do is after trim converting those, you do want to make sure that they are actually curvature. Now this one I'm going to, well, if you put it to edge, it is of course going to help because it's going to be a natural flow of the CV. So I'm going to do that. Of course, this one doesn't really have an edge. So if you can just, if you want to leave it as is, that is totally fine. Now for these ones, I'm not going to have, oh, actually I do need the partials on, but this one will go all the way to the end. This one will have the partials on, same thing over here. I'm just going to make sure it's set to edge. And if you, while you're at it, you can always increase the position influence if you want a tighter fit. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to make sure that this one is edge because it's interacting with the adjacent fillet like this. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So that's going to be edge, that's going to be edge, everything curvature, that's pretty good. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete the construction history. I know that these this fillet over here, it's 100% aligned with position influence to max, and it's edge aligned over here. So this should provide a very good flow over here. And the second thing I'm going to do is the surface that, or the fillet that's adjacent to this one, I want to make sure that it is actually lined up. Now, because I didn't edge align, you'll see that the CV structure has moved a little bit. So let's go ahead and align this one. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this one over here and I'm just going to do that. Now, it looks like position influence doesn't really matter for this one, but I got curvature, so that's good. Now, edge align, yeah, I would say probably edge align is probably going to help a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So this continuity issue is now fixed. I'm going to delete the construction history here. Now for this one, I am not going to try to achieve curvature, but I am going to try as much as possible to get continuity. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so for these things like these, sometimes depending on how flat the surface is, which I think it actually might be, it is going to be really hard to get curvature continuity. Well, sometimes it is actually due to curvature continuity failure, but other times it just could be the checker. So you really have to, well, you have to evaluate the situation case by case. All right, but I think that's good enough. I'm just going to turn the construction or the continuity checker off. And let's take a look. So right now I have the curvature over here and I got curvature on this fillet, so that's good. And if you notice, you'll see that this surface is, well, basically ending in a very sharp edge. I would say this is probably not the most ideal execution. But let's go ahead and take a look at what else I can do. All right, so the second, okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is that now, this fillet is sort of in the middle. Basically, this is a transitional piece. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this piece and this piece over here is continuous first. And then I'm going to worry about this one because this is sort of in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just temporarily trim this just because it's in the way. So let's, well, you know what? Let's just hide it. How about that? Okay, so I'm just going to make that invisible. And if you look at this one, I would say if you were to check the continuity over here, it's failing. Now, you want to make sure that because this is a surface with exact same CV structure. I'm pretty sure the original one, I did align this one edge, but I'm pretty sure the original one also had a positional failure. So let's take a look. So I'm just going to take the rim file over here. Oh, okay, so it looks like it wasn't failing. I thought it was failing, but let's take a look. Okay, so it looks like it was just a tangency issue. Okay, so that one I did make it fail positional continuity, but that should be an easy fix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually going to line this up all the way through like this, just to make things a little bit simple. And I am going to make sure that this is set to skew so that it doesn't deviate too much. All right, so right now I have edge over here, and that should potentially take care of the positional issue. So let's take a look. Okay, so that did, but obviously it's still failing tangency, so let's take care of that first. So I'm just going to grab a line over here, and I'm just going to align like this. And as you can see, I was able to achieve curvature and curvature here. But if you look at the CV structure over here, it's not that great. Now, this is the issue with the form factor. So sometimes if you try to get it lined up nicely, it's going to require a little bit extra work. So I'm just going to skip that. I'm just going to focus on the continue as much as possible. So at least I got curvature there, and let's check the continue over here. Okay, so it looks like I got tangency at least. So I'm going to try and see if I can get curvature. I'm going to say partial. Okay, so it looks like it is failing a little bit, but that is okay. So I'm just going to, now it could be due to the flatness of the surface, as I believe this is dead flat. So if I were to connect the dot from here to here, you'll see that it's a straight line. Sometimes if it's a flat surface, you are going to have a little bit of trouble getting perfect curvature continuity. Now, it doesn't mean it's not curvature. It just means that Alias Continuity Checker has a hard time against measuring against a flat surface. It is kind of like dividing a number by 0. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that's curvature. Now, it is deviating a little bit, but I'm just going to leave it. Now, you could try to get it, but let's see if it will let me. So I'm just going to grab the curvature row CV over here. And as you can see, it's deviating quite a lot, even with a very little push. So, well, let's see if I can get it. So I'm just going to crank it up to 500,000. And there it is. So that was quick. So I'm going to just delete continue over here. And the next stop, I do need to make sure that these are continuous. So let's go ahead and do those. So let's go ahead and check those. Okay, so right now, you'll see that there's a continue issue here, and continue issue here, and continue issue here. Obviously, this side is failing position. So 0.003, I would say that's actually not too bad. 0.2, I would say that's a bit big, so you probably do need to align it. So let's go ahead and see if I can align these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align it, and I'm going to crank up the position influence to max, and looks like it does help a little bit, but I am not able to achieve positional continuity. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Let's see. Okay, so it's a little bit tighter, but again, it's not letting me achieve perfect positional continuity. So now you got two options. You can either fix the COS that it's sitting on, or you can add more data. So let's see which one works better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to revert those, and I'm going to untrim this surface over here, and I'm going to untrim this surface over here. Now the CV structure over here, I think it's decent enough. I mean, it's not perfect. Now this one you could probably do a little bit of fix, but this one, let's see if I am able to get curvature or positional continuity over here first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align it. And obviously position influence is set to max, it doesn't really help. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to instead use project. And looks like even with project, I'm still failing positional continuity. Okay, so that tells me that I probably should increase the data. Because usually with positional project align, what it does is it recreates the tool, the align tool recreates a COS based on the current CV structure. Usually that does build a little bit cleaner COS, but considering that this one is pretty clean and still failing to achieve positional continuity, that means I should probably increase a little bit more data. Well, let's take a look at the same thing over here. So I'm just going to align this one. Position influence to max. Now the CV structure is a little bit better, a little bit more even, but I'm going to try project. Of course, if you do it like this, yeah, you have to use normal or something, because otherwise the CV structure is just going to stay the same. Now, even with this, it's still failing position. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to revert this one, and I'm going to try adding, I'm going to try edge first. I'm going to try adding a span. So I'm going to add a span this way. Okay, so it looks like now I was able to get it, achieve positional continuity. I'm still failing tangency, but at least I got position. You have to start with position, otherwise you can't do anything. All right, so I'm just going to try aligning this one. Looks like this one is still having a lot of problems. I'm going to increase the position influence to max. And looks like my CV structure is a little bit more even. And yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Now, there is a little zigzag here and there, so I think I could probably do a rebuild. So let's start with that. So I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to say 1 is going to be curvature, 3 is going to be curvature. It looks like there's a couple of extra rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and rebuild it. And there it is. Okay, so at least these are curvature to each other. Okay, so now the zigzag is gone. However, it doesn't really... It's still not curvature or not even tangent, so let's take care of those. But now, before I take care of tangency, because these are, at least I try to use align to align there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this one is aligned. Now, I don't think I can quite achieve curvature on this one, well, partly because, well, as soon as I try to achieve, get curvature, you'll see that it fails over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with tangency and see if this works. All right, so it looks like this is not lined up and it's actually causing a positional failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try vector, normal. Yeah, so unfortunately it looks like there is a little bit of deviation, but I think I could probably play with that. Okay, it's not a lot, so let's see if I can just try to get tangency on each side. Okay, so it looks like it's still failing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and manually adjust those. So delete the construction history over here. Now it is quite possible that this one is not perfectly aligned, so this fillet. But considering that, I don't know. It could be, or it could be the COS. So let's do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and align this first. I'm going to align tangency over here against this one, and I'm going to put it to edge like that. Now it is causing a little positional failure, but that is okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the COS over here like this, and I'm going to project align this one. So I'm going to say project align against this surface over here. And okay, so it looks like our deviation is a little bit less. So there's a bit of failure, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and maybe grab one of these CVs over here and see if I can get the continuity, at least tangency continuity over here. So I would say I'm just for tangency, I'm just going to go back to 0.8 or 5,000, sorry. I'm just going to try the continuity over here. Okay, so it looks like previously I was failing at 0.3, but now I'm close, very close to 0.05. And if I just do a little push, and there's tangency over there. All right, of course I do need a little bit of work over here, so let's try to get this one also. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and push a little bit, and I should be, oh, looks like it's failing. Okay, so if that's the case, I'm just going to try to adjust this one. No, I think I probably need to adjust this one. Now I know it's a failing positional continuity, so I probably need to adjust a little bit over here to overcompensate for this one, and there it is. Now it is not curvature, but I think at least I got tangency, so that looks pretty good. All right, so now comes this part over here. So if you look at this one, if I were to project not this piece. Okay, so this piece is done, so I'm just going to trim it. So I'm just going to trim that. Obviously, there's an issue of this one, but I'm going to take care of that a little bit later. Now, these surfaces are all aligned to this fillet, so this should be a little bit easier to get. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to align here. I'm going to, or not align, I'm going to just project. Okay, so it looks like tangents, position failure here. Okay, and tangency is also not as good. So now I'm just going to switch it back to G2, align, edge. I'm just going to align this one. Okay, so I'm going to position influence, yes. So in order to maximize the position influence, it looks like it is shifting the CVs quite a lot. Let's just take a look at this one over here. But at least I'm a little bit closer. Looks like it is failing position over here. Okay, so that is, yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, so let's do this. I don't like that there's a little gap. Now this is, I did this, but I still want this to be a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align this piece over here like that. And I'm going to make sure that this is edge because obviously edge is going to provide the best and natural path of the CVs. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, and you'll see that as soon as I try to align curvature over here, there's all kind of hell breaking loose over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because of the CV structure, let's rebuild it. So it's going to 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's going to be the same setting. I'm going to say, yep, that's good enough. Now the continuity issue will still persist, but at least, you know, so CV structure is a little bit cleaner and a little bit more predictable. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on this one. So right now, okay, so there is now a very, quite a big continuity issue. So I'm going to just trim this one and I'm going to hide this one over here. And let's try to get continuity over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, okay, so even this one is failing quite a lot. Now why is this going the other way? Okay, so it looks like my CV structure is actually pushing this way now, which is interesting. Okay, so it does okay, so let's redo this one. Okay, so I'm just going to do a square, so it's going to be 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4, like this. So, oops, curvature on either side. So if I were to, yep. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that one. Okay, so hopefully it doesn't. Okay, so I got curvature there. Obviously, tangency is failing over here. All right, so let's go ahead. And I'm just going to try to get a little bit better continuity over here. Now, this piece is bigger, so sometimes you have to play around with it a little bit. So I am still going to try and align curvature over here for now. And I'm going to try and get curvature over here as well. So now there is, it looks like a massive kind of failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say vector over here, and I'm going to say normal. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. It's going to vector normal. Oh, it's actually worse. So looks like I'm just going to leave it like this. Now the CV structure is a little bit funky, but well, at least continues a little bit better over here. So now I got curvature here and curvature here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get tangency on this side like this. Okay, so it's pretty good. It didn't destroy too much. So now I'm going to see if I can do a little bit of push to get the continuity over here. Okay, so it looks like that's not helping too much. Okay, so let's try to do this side. Now this one you have to be a little bit careful. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try touch this one. Okay, so this one is proving to be a little bit difficult. It's not really letting me. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to try to get perfect tangency on this one. Again, I think it might be due to the edge. As soon as I do an edge align, this one breaks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up like this. I'm going to delete the COS. So let's go ahead and untrim. I'm going to delete the COS. I'm going to realign this one, project like this. So now I got tangency. It's still breaking here. Okay, so it's still breaking here, but let's see if this is a little bit better. So I'm going to try. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant to adjust the position of continue over here, but there it is. Okay, and this time I got curvature over here, which is nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to try and push the CVs around. Okay, so as soon as I match this one, it starts to fail here. That's actually quite a lot of failure, but let's see if I can get this one to work. Oh, starting to fail position. Okay, so now I'm going to try to go the other way, and there it is. All right, so at least I got tangency over here. I'm going to just trim this one now. Okay, so here is where the problem comes in. So this one being very continuous to this surface over here, this one, oh, let's hide this one for a second. This one being very continuous to this one at the bottom, you'll see that this surface, it's between this one and this one, it's actually creating quite a huge break. So if I were to intersect between the two, like this, you will see that there is a natural break, which means that if you were to try and do a, well, basically this one to be filleted to this one or continuous to this one, it's not really going to work. Well, so what do? Well, in this case, what you can do is you can actually introduce another fillet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, let's leave this as is, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a fit curve like this. Now you can do a fit curve or you can just, I don't know, drag it around. Doesn't really matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a basically a tangent curve or tangent line for these ones. And I'm going to add a fillet between the two. Now this one, so let's maybe do something like that, and I'm going to go over here. Now these pieces, you probably want to keep it a little bit smaller. You don't want to make it too large, and I'm just going to do something like that. Now you don't want it to be perfectly curvature, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do something like this, and I'm going to add probably another piece. Now this one, I think you can probably go like this, but basically what you want to do is you want to keep this area as small as possible. Something like this I think should work. So let's give that a shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to project here, and I'm going to project here. This one I'm just going to do a trim. This one on the other hand, let's go ahead and delete the COS. I'm going to go ahead and do a trim convert on this one. And let's go ahead and pick this one, and I'm just going to hide it. Now these curves are no longer needed. I'm just going to go ahead and hide it also. Now that's however, you do want to make sure that the continuity between this one, because it is a trim converted surface, you do want to make sure that it's good. Now it looks like it's pretty decent. So I would say if I were to just leave it as is, it should be fine. But let's go ahead and do a freeform blend between the two. So I'm just going to pick these ones over here, and I'm just going to do that. Now that's our, I don't know if it's because of the COS, but it looks like this one actually has a lot of spans, which I'm not quite a fan of. But let's take a look at the highlight. Now, yeah, that's actually pretty decent. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try, well, first of all, the most important thing is because I'm actually introducing a fillet and there is no natural flow of this, I'm going to see if it's still curvature or at least tangent between these two. Now sometimes if the patch is too big, at least you'll get something like this. So now let's see if let's see if it's going to be better if I do connect. Okay, so it looks like connect is a little bit better. At least I got tangency over here. I'm failing tangency but over here, but it's not too bad. So now let's go ahead and try to reduce the spans on these. So I'm just going to do a G2 and I'm going to say edge. You can of course position influence to max, and I'm going to just reduce the spans. Looks like a little bit tangency issue here. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to align this one over here. Okay, so looking at this one, I don't want edge. I don't want edge over here either. Okay, so that's not too bad. So I think I can probably work with these. So I'm just going to do a square just to clean up the zigzag over here. So I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, and 4. that cleans it up nicely. And I'm going to delete the original one. Like that. Now, looks like there is a little wiggle on the CV structure, but let's just move on. Okay, so now I'm just going to check the continue over here. So if you saw this, that I'm failing tangency. So let's see if I can get those. 0.9. Okay, so I think it's probably just the CV. So I should probably add one more span on this one. I think it's just the COS that's causing the problem. So let's see. I'm going to try a line. I'm going to say project. That's a little bit too big. I'm going to say view. Yeah. So unfortunately, I think this one I am going to, well, let's keep it a span, single span, and maybe increase a degree. So now it's a 6 degrees. So let's see if that works. So I'm just going to try edge 0.6, project 0.6. Okay, so edge is a little bit closer. So I would say that's good enough. So I'm just going to delete the continue checker over there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick this one. And I'm going to see if I can get it over here. So I think I should be able to. There it is. Oh, align history is on. So you want to always delete those first. And I'm going to pick the CV over here. There it is. And now let's just check the continue over here as well. So I'm just going to trim this one and trim that one. Okay, so it looks like a little bit of tangency issue over here. So this one, because it is actually across two surfaces, you could align it. But I think, well, let's give it a shot. See if I can align. No, it's starting to break over here. So I'm going to just say revert. I'm just going to hand manipulate this one. Now, when you're doing this, of course, you want to make sure that the other areas are not failing. So I'm just going to, well, I'm just going to grab these two and see if I can get the desired continued over here. Oh, looks like it's failing here. Okay, so maybe I'll just touch this one. Okay, so at least I got tangency. It's curvature on both sides, so that's not too bad. All right, so the last step would be to get the curvature continuity over here. So let's go ahead and get a square. Okay, so that's a little bit easier. So I want curvature here and here also. Okay, so it looks like now it's failing all over the place. So let's go ahead and delete the construction history and find out where. Okay, so it looks like I got tangency here and here. I got curvature here. So I'm going to try and get tangency over here at least, if not curvature, partial. I'm going to say vector. Okay, so that's good. G2, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to try get curvature over here. Is that vector? There we go. I got curvature on three sides. And let's see if I can get curvature over here. This is going to vector. Okay, so it looks like this is a problem. So I'm just going to say revert. That's, I would say, pretty satisfactory. I am going to try get a little bit closer, but since this is reversing, I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it. I'm not sure. Okay, so it looks like I'm getting a little bit closer. Yeah, maybe I can. Curvature deviation of 0.4. So I'm going to try tangency over here. Oh, the first row. Okay, so maybe this one. Maybe I need to go into this one over here. But it's failing all over the place. Basically, at this point, you're just playing around with the tolerances. So maybe this is something you want to do, maybe not. I would say it's not. Oh, okay. So it looks like that is probably as much as I can get without breaking continuity over here or adding more control. So I would say that's good enough. All right, so now if you were to check the continuity for here, at least I get tangency on all sides. Curvature is not exactly in, but at least, you know, I got tangency. It's all green. If I check for tangency, it's a lot better than before. And the highlight flow is pretty nice. So that's how you do it. There it is. All right, so that is how to fix the continue issue in a wheel. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time. Want to learn Autodesk Alias and digital sculpting? Then become a member at 3ddesignacademy.com, where you'll find hundreds of video tutorials ranging from basics, including curve creations, intermediate level tutorials such as this wheel, all the way to Class A modeling of the entire car exterior. Interested? Visit 3ddesignacademy.com.